In this exercise, we're going to be working with masks. We're going to be loading a couple of images into Photoshop and removing some of the areas, or at least masking them so that they appear to be gone, so that one looks as if it were in front of the other. The two images we're using are group and woman. I've already downloaded these files. I'm going to open them from Photoshop. File open. If you have already downloaded the images and have access to both of them in the open window, you could select them both and then open them at once, or you can open them one by one. I'll open them at once. I have now in one tab the woman image, and in the other one I have the group image. I need to have the woman picture be on top of the group layer. Currently, like I said before, these are single layered files. They only have a background. However, if we go to the woman, that is the one layer that we want to copy, we can duplicate it and put it on top of the group. There's multiple ways of doing this, and I may have been talking about other techniques in other assignments. Today I'm just going to go the easy way. I'm going to select all. That's going to select everything in the picture. It gives me the marching ants around that. I'm going to edit and copy. This makes a copy of the woman's image onto the clipboard. When I go back to group, I simply edit and paste, and then I have a new layer called layer 1, and this is where the woman's image now resides. Go back to the woman or image, the original one, still has marching ants. I don't want to use this anymore. If I need it, I would simply just open it again. So I'm closing it by clicking on the X. Now I'm working with layer 1 and background. I can rename layer 1 to say woman and background to read something else. It doesn't really matter. At the most, at the end of this exercise, we might have 3 layers. In reality, we only need 2. We're going to apply a mask layer to the top layer. Be sure that woman, or whichever layer you have on top, is active. It's a different color, so I know that that's what I want to work with. I'm going to find the mask layer icon at the bottom. This is so it looks like a square with a circle in the middle. I'm clicking on that while I am active on the woman. Then a layer mask appears to the right of woman. The layer mask is currently active, and if you can see, there's 4 corners that surround that new image. That's actually the layer mask. If the image itself was active, then it would have those markings around it. I do want to be inside of the layer mask. That is the white layer. It's white, and that means that it's transparent. That means that there's nothing really to mask the image currently. It's just a see-through mask that has nothing to block it. We will begin to block the mask by applying a negative color to the mask. If it's white right now, then that means I need to use my brush tool. The brush tool is this one underneath the, there's the spot healing brush tool, and then there's the brush tool. You could press the letter B and it'll take you to that tool. Currently, my brush is at 80 in size, 80 pixels, and the hardness is at 31. When I do the initial masking, I want to make sure that I'm somewhere around 50% for my hardness. Size, I could use a fairly large one, so I'll go and make it about 130 something. I'll click on the image itself, and now I want to make sure that when I start painting with my brush that I'm painting something. If I were to click and drag right now, nothing happens because my brush is white. So I'm going to flip the colors from white foreground and black background to the opposite by clicking on that 2-headed arrow to switch the foreground and background. If you wanted to and you didn't want to change the background, you could simply just click on the white foreground color and then switch it to black, or at least a very dark color. The mask only understands black and white. So when I start to now paint around the image, you'll see that the black appears on the mask layer. The image behind it will become visible. I don't want to get too close to her blouse just yet. I want to be able to work with that later. If I do get too close and I chop off a little bit off of her shoulder or her hair, then I would simply need to switch my my brush back to white, and then that would bring back the the part of the image that is being masked. Press Ctrl Z to undo that. Because I'm going to do a little bit more detail work, I want to make my brush a little bit smaller. I'm pressing the left bracket key. I could also just change it manually up on the brush size. I want to increase also the softness or decrease the hardness, however you want to look at it, taking it down to about 10%. I'm going to zoom in a little bit and then just work around her hair. And I'm taking off a little bit more of the unmasked area. I'll come back to her shoulder in a little bit. I want to do her hair because since I have my settings on soft right now, I think that would work fine with the hair and maybe not so much with the shirt just yet. I think that I maybe took a little bit too much on this part, so I'll switch back to white and I will fill in a little bit coming in from the inside. Same thing on this side, just to sort of fill it in. I'll go back to black and take out a little bit more. I'll switch back to my brush and increase the hardness to somewhere around 40. I'm going to make my brush a little bit larger, just so that I can make this a little bit quicker motion. I'll go around her shoulder, and remember, if you miss anything, you can either press Ctrl Z to undo, or you can just reverse the color and then come back and redo. Keep on going down the side. I think I need a smaller brush here so as not to chop off anything. I'll undo this last one, giving a little bit more, a little bit less. I'm going to zoom out to see how my work is going. I need a lot of work on this side, so I need to start to paint, give it more black, more mask. Not so much there. I'll undo that. You don't have to work on long strokes. If you take short strokes and do it one by one, it will be a better, you'll get a better result, since you can always just undo one little thing and then go back and fix it if you need to. Same thing here, and I think that I am all just about done with my mask. So she appears to be in front of the group. However, she's a little bit looking like a ghost. She's a little bit glowy. That's because of the soft brushes that I used. However, since I'm using a mask layer and it's active currently, I'm going to right click on the layer mask thumbnail and tell it to refine the mask. We have done refinement before, as we did with the some of the selection tools, and they work pretty much the same. I'm going to change the view to an overlay so that I get the background masked in red. I'm going to move this around a little bit more. Click on my smart radius, give it some size, and then very importantly, I'm going to use the edge detection brush. I'm going to make it a little bit larger with my bracket keys, or at least try to do it manually with the size. I'm going to then drag it around the edge of my mask so that it takes all of these pixels into account, and it goes in and fixes it for me. Once again, I don't have to take necessarily very long strokes as long as I make the selection around it. I don't want to necessarily get too far in there because now it looks like it might take too much. I'll click OK and see what happens. The mask did a pretty good job around the blouse, except on the part where I went too far. But since this is a mask, I can always go back, and where it is kind of transparent, I'll switch to white, make sure that my brush is set, and I'll fill it in a little bit more so that that does not appear transparent. Fixing it there, I'm going to fix it around some of the areas around her hair, make sure that that's not too hard to brush, and I can make it even a little bit larger. I'm using my bracket key, and then I think I'm pretty much done with this. It's just a couple of little details that I need to fix up, but nothing that can't be done in the next minute or so. So now we have a new Well, it's the same picture, but it's really a new image. If you see the original layer, the entire picture is still here. That's the big advantage of using a layer mask. This is a non-destructive edit, and our image is untouched, unscathed. We can still use it if we need it. We could simply remove the mask. I'll right-click, and rather than removing it, I'm going to disable it. You can still see the original picture there, and it's X'd out. I'll bring it back by enabling it. Lots of things that we can do with the masked image. We could use the move tool and move her around the scene and give it a different appearance. You want to block those two people, or you want to block these other two people, or you want to block nobody. Maybe she's just sneaking in, taking a look at the scene. A couple of extra tricks that you can do, and I wouldn't necessarily call them tricks, I guess just actions that you can take. You can go to the background, make it active, and make a copy of the background. You can either right click and tell it to duplicate the layer, or you could simply hold background when you click and drag it to the new document, and that'll make a copy of the background. And now that we have a copy that we can work with, this is active or not. It's active at the moment. I could add a filter and tell it to blur the image. I go to blur and then do a Gaussian blur. I can bring up the radius of the blur so that the background image appears to be out of focus, and then she's going to be the focal point of attention in the image. You could also go and change your adjustments on the layer. If we go to image adjustments and look for hue saturation, move this out of the way, and you can take the saturation down, and that'll remove the color from the image. I'll click OK. So now she's got the focus, and everybody behind her is out of focus and in black and white. In other lessons, I'll talk about layer effects, and maybe I'll bring back this image. Something else that you can do while we're still talking about masks is that, and it's something that has always bothered me about this picture, the right side of her face is a little bit dark because the light source is coming from the left side. I'm going to be sure to be on the layer where she's at. That's my woman layer. And I'm going to make a copy of this. Once again, I could either right click and do the duplicate, but since my image, or rather my screen is not large enough for you to see everything, I'm going to simply drag it down to new document and make another copy. So now there's woman plus woman copy. I'll be working on woman copy for this. This has a mask already, and I really don't need this mask because it's hiding the parts that I don't necessarily need to hide. I'm going to right click on the second mask and tell it to delete it. So now I have the original picture, but hopefully it's right above the other one. Now that we have this other image on top, I'm going to change the blending mode from normal to screen. And what that does is that it makes this image, the copy, twice as bright as the original. Obviously, it's way too bright, so I need to hide all of the really bright areas and then just end up with a mask that shows me just the darker areas. What I can do is apply a layer mask, but that's going to give me the regular white, and I have to go through the whole process again. I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to do the same thing, except this time I'm going to press and hold the Alt key and then click on layer mask. This is going to give me the opposite kind of mask. This is the mask where everything starts out already masked, and wherever it is that I go in and apply the white brush, I have white currently, I'll go to the brush and start to apply it on the right side of her face. Then the white areas, or rather the bright areas, start to appear. And this is a little bit too bright, but and you have to remind yourself, or at least it seems that I have to remind myself every now and again, I'm working in Photoshop. Obviously, I can change this. I can Photoshop it. I can go to the opacity layer and say, you know what, all that brightness, make it a little bit duller. And then we'll make it dull enough where it will show us more light on that side, yet hide the brightness that it was giving us. this is what it looked like before, kind of dark, and then now she's got a little bit more light. And we can just keep on working or playing with the opacity until we end up at a point where the right side of her face is better lit and not necessarily look like it was added at the end as an afterthought. So if you have completed your mask for the woman so that she is in front of the group, that would suffice for this exercise. If you want to make the changes to the background by blurring it and removing the color, and then brightening up her face, then that's just extra stuff that you can do.